Welcome to the Filmistines, the podcast where we discuss all things movies. Join us as we dive deep into the latest releases, revisit classic films, and explore the art of cinema. Whether you're a film fanatic or just love a good flick, we've got you covered. From Hollywood blockbusters to indie gems, we'll be breaking down the storytelling, cinematography, and everything in between. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready for some cinematic magic. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $20 tier grants the ability to request films for future episodes. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. All around you. So we're back with another episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in to episode number, I'm going to go ahead and guess, 12. I don't know if it's 12, but I'm going to guess 12.
12?
That feels right. But I'm joined today by Slasher Lucy. There we go. There she is. Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friends.
Today we've got another horror movie. We are a horror podcast, apparently. And we are covering the third Saturday in October. The movie came out last year alongside its kind of sequel. You're actually supposed to watch these movies in the opposite order. Poking fun at, I learned that recently. You're supposed to watch part 5 before part 1, and it's like, it's a ha-ha, because, how horror movies are all fucked up in their chronology and whatnot and stuff. And this, how did you feel about the third Saturday in October?
I liked it. I thought it was a fun movie. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just me. I'm kind of confused on my horror terminology. I know we had a little debate session there with what's a demon and what's a evil spirit. So this
on the Evil Dead Rise?
Yeah, on
podcast.
the Evil.
Go check that out.
Yeah, go check that out, please. So this is a horror movie, but I didn't get horrified. I didn't get scared.
Yeah.
And it's a slasher, but there wasn't enough slashing.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I heard you call it a comedy at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a comedy.
But I didn't laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just confused on what to call it here.
Yeah, it's
But it was fun.
Yeah, there's it's a funny movie. All right, thanks for listening and tuning in to the Filmistines.
See you next time.
It was, the horror genre is it's just a funny thing. Yes, like in theory, if it's horror, yes, you expect on some level to be horrified, right? What Stephen King says is to try to terrify, and if you can't terrify, horrify. If you can't horrify, to show them gore. That's what Stephen King says. And it's so, I hate to say the word, but subjective to what, terrifies and horrifies and disturbs and freaks people out, right?
Oh, for sure,
It's
yeah.
just, you never know what's going to freak someone out. Sometimes holes freak people out. Sometimes blood and guts freak people out. Sometimes decapitated heads freak people out. Sometimes people yelling freaks out. It can be lots of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to identify horror in like a really fleshed out, like alphabet kind of way, because it's easier to identify different types of dramas, because you can pretty much immediately tell something is dramatic or melodramatic or, hyper realistic or like a biopic documentary type thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like it's pretty obvious, but horror, I guess, is a little more similar to like different flavors of comedy, because it's just like, so some stuff is just not funny to people, right? Some people think Monty Python's funny. Some people think Adam Sandler's funny, right?
Yeah.
Some people think, God forbid, Will Ferrell's funny, right? And some people think, I don't know, the show Atlanta is funny. Atlanta's not funny. It's kind of disturbing, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Atlanta's funny, but it's a comedy. I wouldn't say it's funny, but it's a comedy. It's kind of one of these funny things where if just you gotta start to talk about the nuts and bolts of it all. And yes, the third Saturday of October, or is it in October?
Of October or in October? I
can't-
had of.
Of, and
But you
I
said
can't remember.
in.
It was a little. It's a horror movie strictly based off of, I'm going to say, the mood. In October. It's a mood thing. The horror thing is a mood thing, right? This is a horror movie. Rosemary's Babies is a horror movie. The Exorcist is a horror movie. A lot of your found footage movies are horror movies, just by nature of the mood it sets. You know, it's kind of an anxious, it's kind of fast. A lot of times they're fast. A lot of times they're dark, crying, you know, things like this. There's also an element of camp that's all, and helps to identify a lot of horror.
I was going to say that.
And camp's another thing that's just really hard to define, but it's kind of easy to point out. When you know it, you know. And this movie's mega campy, right? It's because it's making fun of early 80s horror, right? It's got your ultra serious characters, you know, the Dean, what's his name?
Ricky Dean Logan.
Ricky Dean and Vicky Newton.
Vicky Newton.
They're, you know, over the edge serious. They're funny because they're so serious about the matter, and then no one else really is. No one's like in the same movie as them. You know, it feels like. So that's kind of an important distinction between characters when it comes to movies like this. That's how you start to identify that this is an 80s horror movie made today, but made in, it looks like it's of that vein. It looks like it's even of the late 70s maybe, which is really interesting. I wonder if it's the technology that they're using, the gear they're using, or is it, you know, filters and it's still modern cameras and they're just using, you know, whatever to bring it back down to earth, which is neat. I don't really know. There's not an awful lot of information about these films out there. So this movie is, to me, very clearly making fun of. So it's almost like there's a in the loop, in the know kind of element to maybe the comedy side of this. But to me, it's making fun of those old movies. And so when just things happen, not even necessarily like in a tropey way, but they just happen in such a silly way, and they happen like they lead up in a silly way, and then they literally are happening in a silly way, like when Denver's face started to get carved off. You know, it's horrifying, right?
I mean, like, I didn't think it was horrifying. I thought it was kind of silly.
Well, that's the campiness side of it playing out, and it's like, yes, contextually, literally, like the concept of it is horrifying, and so that starts, you know, that keeps the horrorness of it kind of together. But it's done so badly. I don't know if the 80s was just into making bad practical effects, because, you know, we had David Cronenberg even before that, and David Cronenberg has some of the gnarliest body horror ever put on screen, you know what I mean? So it wasn't the expertise, you know, this was all intentional, you know, even in the 80s, right? And so that's when you start to get your homageness. I guess it's an homage if it's done classy, and this is as classy as it gets for an homage of the 80s horror film.
Yes.
Right? It's pretty much, you know, they have, you know, you see the person, you see Denver, and she's dancing or whatever, and then you see the guy, and it zooms in, real fast behind her, and it's just, you know, that's a moment where everyone in the theater cheers, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, and that's in itself campy. That's campy camera work, I would say, that kind of stuff. And so, what was your question?
I didn't have a question.
We asked, like, what is horror? Why is this horror? Why is this comedy?
Well, I'm using words that used to describe this movie that, you know, I'm just trying to pinpoint.
Yeah.
What word I would use to describe this movie.
What would you use?
Yeah, I mean,
silly horror.
Yeah. And I like what you said, homage to 80s horror, which I like that. I think it did do that. So, yeah, still trying to pinpoint.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's just, you know, it's just like anything else, where when you have a super defined subculture with, you know, of a medium, you really kind of have to just get in it and start looking around and messing with it. You start reading the books, start watching the movies, playing the different Dark Souls games, whatever, you know, you got to like just figure it out, right? And things will start to piece together. Then you read what people say online, you're like, oh, that's what, you know, that's a way to describe this, and then you can start to build upon that and everything.
Yep.
And we don't get a lot of that. We didn't grow up with that, right? We missed that the 80s horror. I guess you could still grow up with it if your parents and stuff are watching it when you're growing up and everything, but I did not grow up with an awful lot of it. I grew up with Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers and Chucky and the random horror films. But so I've got some. I guess I do actually have some. I take that back. I have some legs in that realm, but not on the haunted house hill era. Like I don't just the random ass horror movies that were at the drive-in and nobody else knows about except the people that went in the drive-in those specific weekends. They're hard as shit to find on VHS today. Those kinds of movies. I don't have any experience with those kinds of things. The movies that this movie's making fun of, I don't have a lot of experience with, but I do know about them. And but I do want to say that the part 5 in quotes, which is part 1, actually you're supposed to watch it first, and then this one, it's just the whole confusing thing, and that makes I hope that makes you think of Scream, right?
Yeah.
Scream came out. That one last year came out called Scream.
Yeah.
But it's part 5.
Right.
Right. And so it's like where do I start with Scream? If you're trying to get into Scream, do I start with this one or start with the
Scream or Scream?
Yeah. It's just like and then it's kind of making fun of that.
Yeah. I like that.
If it's funny, it's funny. If it's not, you don't get it probably. Because it's hard not to be like, that's cute, at least, right?
I like it. I think it's very hilarious. Cute. Yeah.
And so, but the part 5, which is actually part 1, is an homage to 90s horror. Same killer. And I'm not going to say too much, but what that is, you're going to see it's going to be fun to compare the two when we watch that one here in a day or so. And you're going to see how much more stupid probably the characters are, or what I'm going to guess, and how much more graphic and gruesome the kills are. It's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the kills just escalate. Even today, they just fucking get gnarlier and gnarlier, right?
Right.
And the characters just became really just ditzy characters. We had some ditzy characters here, but they were on drugs the whole time. So it's like hard to even say that they were ditzy,
Mm-hmm.
And they were just kind of these pawns to tie the story in together. They were like that middle section between the Heather, the girl who worked at Bronco Burgers, and the two uber serious characters, and then the sheriff and Chew. They were just kind of that pawn to get everybody together and stuff. But yeah. So what kind of thoughts do you have on this movie? There's not a lot going on. The coolest thing about this movie is probably
the score, for sure.
Yes, ma'am. This
For
score
sure.
is sick.
Yes.
I am very curious about the next one. What did it remind you of?
Very David Lynch. I was thinking Twin Peaks the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like,
awesome.
oh my gosh. It was awesome. I mean, there's no other ways to describe it besides it was awesome. It hit right where it needed to hit. It made me feel where I needed to feel. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, I feel like Laura Palmer was going to show up.
Yes.
I really did. I'm going to write. I don't know if David Lynch is still making his weather updates on YouTube, but I'm going to write in the comments if he is on the next video to go check out this score, because he's going to be
he'll like it.
Like
yeah.
it.
I liked, besides the score, I oh my god. Yeah. I liked that the bad guy wouldn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know there's something there I'm supposed to be making fun of, because, you have all these bad guys who do never die, and, you have the sequel and the requel and of the same guy. But I just thought it was funny because those guys, they get hurt and then they go off somewhere. This guy's getting shot. He's getting electrocuted. He's getting like, oh my god, and he's not dying. And I kind of like that. I like everything they did with that.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's probably a call out to several, movies that I haven't seen that are very niche and stuff that I'd love to get into, but there's just, such a big history of the slasher, 80s horror, synth horror and stuff. But Michael Myers from Halloween, and then Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, which I think this movie is pinpointing specifically is Friday the 13th, especially by name.
What do you mean by name?
Friday the 13th.
Oh.
Which often happens in October.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
I did like that they tied this to a real stupid, rivalry between two college football teams. I thought that was funny and stupid and
That's
cute.
a thing too, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's real. It's a real day. It's a real rivalry, real day.
Because when I was looking up the movie, that popped up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
it's
what?
It's many times more popular than this movie even now. Yeah.
What? Fandom? Random? What am I reading? And then it clicked. I'm like, oh my god, this is real.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was sick.
Yeah. So fucking clever. I know you briefly talked about the style of the film. That graininess. And at first, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Because it was kind of grainy, and then I put my glasses on, and it was
still grainy.
Still grainy. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
and then I think I asked you if it was a decent quality.
I was like, oh yeah, HD.
Yeah.
4K maybe.
I was like, oh, okay. But then, as the movie progressed, I'm like, I like this. It gives that feel. I don't know if there was the score, too, that was just making me love everything coming together and just making it so fun. That I appreciated the graininess of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. I'm glad to hear that. It is hard. I mean, I'm with you. I'm definitely not above that. I grew up at the same time you did. There wasn't a lot of it, especially when we started to become intellectually independent. We kind of grew up in the HD era, especially relative to back then, the 480 era and the 720 and the 1080. We grew up at the with a lot of booming technology in resolution. So we it's so hard to go back, and I know there's a lot of excellent movies back there. I've seen great old movies, and that era between the late 60s and the 80s. You get a lot of that graininess. I'm not exactly sure. I guess it's because of the 16 millimeter became popular, and before that, I think the 32 millimeter was still popular. I'm not sure. And so, like, earlier movies are less grainy than those in between movies, and they became less grainy because they started. Well, film became cheaper, and then people started recording digitally, and so I don't know. It's just kind of hard to go back. That's what I'm saying. So I feel you, and so I'm with you too. Not that we went back, I guess, with this because this movie came out last year. To select theaters, I think I'm not sure where this released, but it has a 2022 release. Maybe it was at the Cannes Festival last year.
Yeah, I think I read one random comment somewhere about a festival they were lucky enough to watch at.
Yeah. I would have loved to see this. I wouldn't have probably gone to the theater, but I would have loved to see this released at multiple theaters. A kind of U.S. release, which would, because it would have just, it would just show a playfulness with theaters and the love of cinema.
Yeah.
And I get, theaters are kind of a dying business, and they need to kind of cash in on where they can because of all the equipment's so expensive, and these companies are more and more, they're wanting to cut them out more and more because they can make money more and more other places in the theater and stuff. And it's just like, well, I don't know. Hopefully Mario helps change that opinion because, Mario's sitting at a nice, cool $1 billion right now, $1.2 billion. So hopefully we see a focus on theater releases.
Yeah,
more for
that'd be cool.
At least for the studios and the future of cinema, not for the businesses and the corporations. Fuck them. But but then again, they have to, someone's got to call the shots. So it's like it's a balance, right? You gotta respect both sides. So I kid. But I'm glad the score stuck out to you. Would it have stuck out to you 5 years ago?
No.
No?
I wouldn't have watched this 5 years ago. I would have turned it on, saw it was grainy, looked for another copy, saw it was still grainy. Saw it was still grainy. Nope. Mm-mm.
That's funny.
No.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Did it release in October? Did it release in the second,
Yeah, I don't know.
third, whatever?
I'm not sure where it released. I should mention it was recommended by a dear friend, and I'd never heard of it before.
Okay.
Before a month ago, probably, or so, maybe 2 months ago at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, it deserves a proper release, and maybe you'll get a Netflix showing or something, and it'll get that momentum. Do other movies like this happen? You just have these classy things that handle the material of what it's kind of calling upon with such reverence. This loves old horror movies. This movie, people who made this movie. Do other movies like that happen? I just never hear about them. I don't know. I feel like I got my ear to the ground pretty much all the time with stuff like this. So I don't know. Yeah, that score is probably one of the craziest scores I've ever heard of in my life. And I hope it got some kind of award or recognition for that specifically. That'd be sick. Because, I don't know how, this isn't going to go to the Oscars or anything, but if it did, I don't know if it'd go to, like, this coming year, 2024 Oscars, or if it missed its chance but I don't know what kind of requirements of release you need to be eligible to go to the Oscars or anything like that. But, yeah, that was definitely my big takeaway with this movie is that score.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it was, it's a weird thing to say about horror movies, but this movie was really fits into that cute category.
Yeah. No, yeah,
which is it's just hilarious to say that about horror, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, but it isn't, because I before a couple 3 years ago, whatever, I didn't watch horror unless I was probably watching it with somebody else, and even then I probably wasn't watching it. So we've covered a lot of horror in the past few years. Anything from Bunny Man to the old and the new Texas Chainsaw Massacres.
Yeah, both.
Some of the Scream movies.
Willy's Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland.
Rainfield. Willy's Wonderland's got some good stuff.
Hey, I like that. It's up there. It's up there for me. Where? I don't know, but it's up. And your Insidious, your Conjurings, your Paranormal. Well, actually, I don't know if we've watched the Paranormal Activity movies.
I don't think so.
But I know I've seen the first one, and I watched that with my brother. And
did he fall asleep?
Yeah, he fell asleep. It was my brother and his girlfriend at the time, and he fell asleep, and I thought that movie was kind of silly. So now I know I don't get scared by paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
Ghosts aren't too big of a deal for me. So my point is, I've come a long way on appreciating movies like this.
Yeah.
And it really makes me appreciate it.
I'm super glad to hear that.
I loved, when he carved Amber's face. And it looked like he was carving a piece of ham, and afterwards it looked like she had ketchup splattered all over her face.
Yep.
And when he scalped that Girl Scout,
that was funny.
That was hilarious. And
then one of them tried to grab her bike, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
You gotta imagine that probably wasn't scripted. There's probably someone off screen saying, "Go," She's like, just saying, "Get out of there," And it's cute. It's just there's something about horror movies of all shapes and sizes, walks of life of horror, that just feels like they had fun making it.
Yes.
And there's just an appreciation. There's just this is a communal kind of fun that's just emitted from movies cut, from this cloth. Not all horror movies, of course, are of that vein. Like, I wouldn't say like the Insidious movies are a little more, although the first Insidious I feel like it's very good, but it feels a little more like studio made. It doesn't feel like it has the love and care that this movie of course has, but neither like a House of a Thousand Corpses or even Renfield or even The Pope's Exorcist. Even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's just something a little more corporate about it.
Yes.
But it's still There's just something about horror movies that just put a magnifying glass on. Movies can be... It's not just that movies can be fun, but it's just an radiated element of just... I don't know. Like, it's just a weird element of artistry that comes from them. Not that I don't think any horror movie is one of the greatest movies ever made either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just this crazy amount of playfulness that happens, and I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the vibes they're giving, and we're receiving those vibes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Vibes. Well said.
I mean, I bet they have a lot of fun on set with a lot of these things.
Evil Dead Rise, I bet you they had so much fun making that movie.
With the blood, oh my god, I bet they had fun with
makeup.
that. The makeup, yes.
And like the kids, the part 1, I bet you that was so fun. I bet it's scary for the kids too, even. But oh man, I can imagine that being so much fun to work with. And I just don't get that feeling from other movies, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, RRR is one of my favorite movies of all time now. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Bollywood made movie, but it's just not. It doesn't admit that at all, one bit. But it is a fucking awesome movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you.
Good. What was your favorite part about this movie?
Oh, I knew you were gonna ask that.
Who was your favorite character? My favorite character was
Uncle Dieter.
Dieter is good. Dieter is good. I was gonna say, what's his name? Ricky Dean.
Ricky Dean.
Ricky Dean's my favorite.
The main dude.
Yeah. He kind of was the main dude, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was my favorite character. I liked him.
I don't know who my favorite character was. Nobody stuck out to me as a favorite.
There's not. To be fair, I guess there's not a lot of character happening.
Yeah.
My favorite scene was definitely the execution scene.
Yes.
That was awesome. And then everybody's like, you know, and there's that one cop who's like, puts his hand over his mouth and he's about to throw up or something when his eye,
Oh yeah, his eye popped.
When what's the killer's name?
Harding.
When Harding's eye pops, yeah. It's sick in a good way.
I was thinking about that, either the execution scene or the scene where Harding takes that razor blade and cuts Uncle Dieter. I don't know why. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. I don't know if I've ever seen something like that where he's just like tempting. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool.
And I liked all the bits where where Harding was behind the guys and it would zoom in on them. Yeah, crash zoom they call that. Okay. And Wes Anderson's famous for that. He doesn't make horror movies. A Wes Anderson horror movie would be sick though. He doesn't. I don't know if he has that in him though. But he does that from like he'll do that from a football field away. They'll crash zoom into it. It's sick. Wow. They're so cool. He's he didn't invent that, but he definitely owns that shit. That's the crash zoom on the killer with that note, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's such a trope, but it's
good.
It's awesome.
It's good.
It's awesome, and because it you know, and it kind of reminds me of like the Evil Dead Rise where she's looking through the peephole, and it's just it puts that problem right in your face, and I like it. I like that a lot. We need. Is it possible to take some of those 80s tropes and put them in through a modern lens and through a modern budget and like, you know, an Evil Dead Rise type movie and not look cheap? Because this movie looks cheap, but it's like intentional, so there's some kind of fucking pass it gets. I don't know. Yeah. But when a movie does cheap things and it looks like it shouldn't be cheap, like if Evil Dead Rise probably did some cheap things. I don't know what I'm asking. Maybe it's not fair to say this either, to say any of that, because it's just a case by case basis, isn't it? It's just I'm sure. I want to see that in a modern movie. It could be done. I think it can. It'll have to be done really well so it doesn't look cheesy, but I think it can be done. I will say one thing that this movie made me think constantly throughout the movie while watching it is, which I've experienced this before, especially with horror movies. I guess this is one thing I wanted to kind of bring back, I guess, when I was trying to describe the feeling of watching horror and why I like it. And why I think a lot of people like it. And it's just one of these really hard things to describe because it's so poetic and artistic, you know, because it's just like, it's just It's it's just a thing that's hard. It's not a very technical thing. It's just a raw feeling that a lot of people seem to get on some level. This movie makes me feel. It makes me want to pick up a camera and make a movie.
Okay.
This is, I mean, I experience it with other movies too, but this is definitely not from the angle of I can do that better. Give me a camera right now, I'll do that better.
Yeah.
Not that, but that it's radiating that element of fun so intensely that
I want to have that much fun. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've never gotten that feeling. I've gotten the feeling I want to act, but I haven't gotten the feeling that I want to film.
Hey, that's similar. That's along the line for sure. That's cool. What movies made you want to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
It? Yeah. If you think about that,
maybe even like voice acting too. Although I don't know about that, but
voice acting seems hella tough, and I think people underestimate it, underappreciate it, and underdo it. I was watching some behind the scenes of that new animated. Is it a Netflix movie? I'm not sure. Called the Bad Boys or the Bad Guys or something like that.
Bad Guys?
Yeah, and they're like
with the wolf.
Yeah, the wolf and the snake.
Yeah.
And I was watching some behind the scenes of them voice acting and stuff, and it's just so bad. It's just so fucking bad. And some people are better than others naturally, like Jack Black and anything he does. He has a kind of a cartoon voice, and so he can kind of just lay that on, and it works. The problem with that part of that is you don't want to bring up other characters in your mind's eye when you're acting a different. If you're Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls, you don't want to summon that image in your mind in the audience's mind's eye when you're watching some anime, right?
Yeah.
So it's you gotta navigate around that, and like the biggest offender of that is the guy who does Invader Zim. He's in several things. He plays Raz in Psychonauts, and he the alien dude from Destroy All Humans, but everything sounds like him. And so it's just like whoever's like the most iconic character in your mind, it sticks out as that. And it's just kind of like he's got a great cartoon voice, but he just doesn't utilize it quite like I feel like he should. Kind of like, I don't know, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's got a flavor to him in most of his movies, and he feels the same in all of his movies. I wish that range was a little more, but that's just maybe it's not fair for me to ask that because it's it's a lot. It takes a lot of actors to take it seriously. But that's awesome. Yeah, if you next time you feel that, you bring that up.
Yeah, I'll try to think about what films have made me feel like that.
Yep.
Also like the scene, not a favorite scene, but I like the scene where the girl Heather, is it her dad? Her dad? No. It's when Heather is with Vicky Newton and Ricky Dean. No, Ricky Dean. And they're in the house, and Ricky Dean just shot the dude.
Oh, yeah.
And she's screaming.
Oh, yeah. How David Lynch was that?
And screaming.
That was awesome.
Yes, that was awesome.
That was so awesome. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That just screamed right between David Lynch and Michael Haneke, man. That was sick.
Yeah.
That was so good.
I was like, oh my God, that's okay. I like this.
And it's just like, I mean, is that campy? Sure, but it's just so. Another thing that's kind of like that is when the guys, the friends were at Bronco's Burgers and Heather was working, and the sheriff comes in his weird ass yellow outfit, and you're just like, what the fuck? And he sits down, and like the friends are laughing and cutting up and stuff, and they start meowing, and then the fucking sheriff meows. And you're just like, what?
What is going on?
What is happening? That's not David Lynch. That's not a Lynchian thing, I would say, but that is so just.
It's weird.
Good. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know what to call it. That only fit here. That only fit in this kind of movie.
Yeah.
It's just those weird things. Like that's like borderline. I mean, I guess I don't really get uncomfortable when I watch movies, but I could, if I saw that in real life, I'd be fucking a little uncomfortable. If I saw the sheriff meowing, if I was like sitting behind, across where I saw these guys cutting up, and I saw the sheriff behind them, and I saw him meowing at them under his breath, and they were meowing.
Yeah, I'd be a little disturbed.
Like seeing that, I'd be like, this is freaking me out right now. That was good stuff. Yeah, that's kind of in the vein of the cut, that weird cut. He just that restraint, like he's just playing with his prey, and the scream even too. Although I would say that scream is very Lynchian, super Lynchian. Love it. Dude, God, that score though, man, that is the most Twin Peaks ass shit I've ever heard in my life. It was sick. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are they gonna get a cease and desist letter? No, it's not that similar, but it just screams it. Oh, it's one of those movies too that I'm gonna have an impossible time scoring because it hits on so many notes, but it's also intentionally kind of shit, you know. And so it's one of those movies I'm probably gonna be thinking about for a long time. It's gonna work its way up to a 2 probably for me. Because that's just that comfortable space for me. Yeah, don't listen to me. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd score it.
Because I talk about it like I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's a lot to love here. There's a lot, and the graveyard scene. Graveyard scene's great with the mist, like just the nonsensical amount of mist, right?
The fog,
and like we're not even being sure what happened with Ricky Dean and Harding, who got hurt, who hurt who. You know, we heard the gunshot. You're like, well, did he get shot? We don't even know.
Yeah. And
there's just a miscommunication there. I feel like that's totally intentional. And then we find out later that his hand was broken from whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess Ricky Dean either missed or shot him, and he just walked away like he would. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And it's just like, I don't know why that's so good, but it is. This movie is a 4 or 5 for me, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to mark this movie. Yeah, that scream was excellent, though. The scream also reminds me of Mia Goth's silent, smiling monologue at the end of Pearl during the credits.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of weird in that same way.
Yeah. I can feel that.
Yeah, she got a lot of praise for that. Because that was like a whole 8-10 minute bit. And she, on camera, went from definitely not crying to summoning the tears, and just like holding that, and pretty nuts.
That's impressive.
That's pretty nuts. Yeah. I hope she finds interesting corners. I like her. Yeah. Are you excited about part 5, part 1?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Good.
Thank you for watching. See those 90.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to compare the two, isn't it?
Yeah.
I laughed to find that you're supposed to watch 5 before 1, because my mind definitely is gonna go chronologically, but I mean it's hard to not make fun of the lack of chronology in most horror. Like, where do you start in Friday the 13th? They're all unrelated to each other. Does it even matter where you start?
Yeah, I almost feel like they would appreciate that you messed up like that. Like, we got him.
Reminds me of this game called Goat Simulator. So Goat Simulator came out. The first one came out 2015, 16 maybe. And Goat Simulator 3 just came out last year.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't a Goat Simulator 2. They just skipped 2. Which is, it's an absurd game where you play as a goat that causes havoc on a little town by sticking its tongue to everything and throwing it around. So I guess it works. Thank you for watching this movie with me. This was a fun watch, and I'm glad that it was recommended to me.
Yeah, me too.
And I'll be happy to recommend it to horror buffs. I feel like it's almost a necessity.
Yeah.
On some level, if you're into the 80s horror.
Watch it in order. Don't watch it in order.
Yeah, I don't think it matters, to be honest. I know the director, Jay Bauhaus. I don't know. That's not his name, but Jay something. He said it was you should watch part 5 then part 1. He said that, so I guess we have to take that however. But yeah, thank you for watching this with me. And do you have any final thoughts?
Nope, no final thoughts. I am thoughtless.
Good. That's how I like you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmsteins. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines signing off.